Hello everybody and welcome back to the Logan Blackman Show YouTube channel. I hope you all are ready for another exciting, extraordinary video today because this is the official Tlbs NFL season preview. I haven't decided yet. I'm gonna decide on the fly whether this is gonna be the full NFL preview or we're gonna split it into two parts with an AFC preview and an NFC preview. So if you're seeing this video right now and you check the title, you know exactly what we're doing. But as of right now, as I'm recording, I have no freaking clue what I am going to do. But I'm excited. I'm really excited. The NFL season's finally here. We had Iowa State UNI kick off this past weekend. We had week 1 of college football, which is really exciting to see. And then now, tonight, Thursday, we have the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Baltimore Ravens in a very exciting season opener. We have NFL action on Friday as well with the Packers and the Eagles. We've just got a lot of fun stuff to look forward to this fall. It was a long time coming. It was a very long time coming. We sat and we suffered for long enough, and now we are finally ready for some real football. I know the UFL was a thing. I know the Arena Football League and Indoor Football League are a thing. It's not the same, is it? But nothing hits the same as football season. Nothing hits the same. I'm ready for this episode. I am ready to just sit back and relax on a Sunday afternoon. It's just great. I cannot reiterate that enough how exciting it is to finally have football back fully, because we just had college football last week or the past 2 weekends, and I hope you're excited as well. But before we get into what we're going to talk about today in this video, make sure to check out all the links in the description down below. You can follow me on all different forms of social media. Make sure to check out the Apple Podcasts and Spotify accounts. Make sure to check out the 2024 State of Iowa previews as well. I would greatly appreciate that. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up because, again, we like before we try here on the Logan Blackman Show YouTube channel. Just please don't hate my predictions. If I say your team is going to be really bad this year, then I'm sorry. Your team's just going to be really bad. I can't help it. I can't help that I'm right all the time. I can't help that. It's a burden that I have to bear. And if your team is bad, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Now, I need to figure out how I want to do this. I think I'm going to go for previous years. We've done a spinning wheel and just chosen a random team. One year we chose names out of a hat. We've done a bunch of different ways to start this, so might as well just keep switching up. Let's just go the cardinal directions here. Let's just go north, south, east, and west. And starting it off would be the Baltimore Ravens, the reigning number 1 seed in the AFC, with the reigning MVP in Lamar Jackson, with one of the... I don't want to be too, because I love Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is one of my favorite players in the NFL. But last season, the fact that he was 1 vote away from another unanimous MVP is insane when you just look at his stats. His first MVP season, yes, one of the greatest individual seasons in NFL history, very deserving of being the second ever unanimous MVP behind Tom Brady. But this past year, no. The MVP award is slowly becoming the starting quarterback on the best team in the league. That's what it seems like anyways. Because Lamar's numbers were nothing spectacular this last year. Not saying that he was bad by any means. I don't want to make it sound like that. But for an MVP season, the fact that he had 49 first place votes out of a possible 50 is insane to me. But the Ravens, they're returning a lot of key people. I mean, the offensive line, you got some question marks. You never know if Ronnie Stanley's going to be fully healthy. But you look at the receivers like Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman's finally healthy. Mark Andrews will be coming back and fully healthy. Isaiah Likely looked really good last year. So you have arguably the best tight end tandem in the league. And the biggest move they made was bringing in Derrick Henry from Tennessee. Derrick Henry in a backfield with Lamar Jackson is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what the red zone targets are going to look like because obviously Lamar's going to need to get his touches running the ball. But Derrick Henry is such an imposing force. To add him to the team that consistently has the best rush offense in the league is insanely scary. On the defensive side of the ball, their pass rush is a little bit weaker from a season before. Jadeveon Clowney is gone. I believe he went over to the Carolina Panthers. So we're going to need to see the likes of Odafe Oweh, Kyle Van Noy step up this year. We're going to have David Ojabo as well from Michigan. See how he does this year. But the secondary should be fine. Kyle Hamilton's still one of the best safeties in football. You did lose Patrick Queen in the linebacking force who went over to the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason, but the Ravens will always be solid defensively, and as long as Lamar Jackson stays healthy, they always have a chance to win. So this year, I'm going to have the Ravens finishing with a nice, calm, cool 11-6 record. And I think we're just going to go in alphabetical order because I don't want this thing to get too predictable and go oh, well, this is the exact... So, if you get to team 3, you're what? How is that team in last place? So we're just going to go in alphabetical order, and and sometimes it might actually work out that the order that I predict them to go in is in alphabetical order, but it's not the case in this situation, at least, well, not this next one, because I do think this team will finish second in the division, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow is back and healthy. At least you can hope for Cincinnati Bengals fans. Now, the contract situation with Jamar Chase is not ideal. There's still question marks on whether or not he'll be playing in that week 1 matchup against, I believe, the New England Patriots. T. Higgins, this may be his last year with the team as well. We'll have to wait and see on that. You added in the likes of Amarius Mims this offseason at one of the tackle spots. He's one of the youngest tackles in this draft. Joe Mixon is gone at running back, so there's a lot of consistency lost back there. But he did bring in Zach Moss from Indianapolis, who had a very good season last year, to pair along with Chase Brown from Illinois, the second year back from Illinois. Defensively, the Bengals are they're fine. Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard on the defensive line. The Bengals defensively are usually a fairly solid outfit, but Joe Burrow coming back is the main thing here, because Jake Browning last year, he played all right in spurts, but the Bengals desperately needed that consistency at the quarterback position. And yeah, Joe Burrow being back will boost this team immensely. So I'm going to say the Cincinnati Bengals this year go nice, calm, cool, 10-7 with Burrow back under center. And now if we continue going in alphabetical order, the next team on this list is the Cleveland Browns. And the biggest thing for this team going in is just staying healthy. Deshaun Watson, he's been injured pretty much ever since that massive trade took place, which brought him from the Houston Texans to the Cleveland Browns. And apparently now he's got a little bit of a shoulder issue. Now they did bring in Jameis Winston to serve as the backup, which is a nice little security blanket at the backup quarterback position. You brought in the likes of Jerry Jeudy this offseason, as well as one of the wide receivers to pair along with Amari Cooper, who's apparently not too thrilled to be linked with trades away from the Cleveland Browns, because remember, they were linked constantly with now recently re-signed 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk. They also got David Njoku at tight end. The tackle positions, Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin, both coming off of knee injuries, so we'll need to see them back and fully healthy this year. And speaking of injuries, Nick Chubb at the running back position, he's going to be out for at least the first 4 games of the season, so we'll see the likes of Dante Foreman in there, and we should see the likes of Jerome Ford as well. Defensively, they're solid as long as they can stay healthy. Again, health is just a big thing for the Cleveland Browns. Jim Schwartz on the defensive side of the ball is one of the best defensive coordinators in football. Myles Garrett is coming off a Defensive Player of the Year season. Denzel Ward just recently got concussion, so if you can keep him healthy, and apparently he hasn't contemplated retirement, but when you get as many concussions as he has, it starts getting a little scary. So hopefully he can rebound and stay healthy for this season. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at linebacker just re-signed as well. Like, the Browns defensively will be solid. And they had a good team last year with Joe Flacco at the starting quarterback position with how many injuries they had. That being said, I do expect the Cincinnati Bengals again to be better, which will challenge them a little bit more. I do have the Browns finishing closer to 500 this year, just with, again, the question marks injury-wise. And that might not be a big deal, because, again, they battled that last year and they finished 11-6. But I do think that will hamper them a little bit this year, and I am going to have the Browns finish 8-9 this regular season. And the next team on this list, continuing our alphabetical order way, is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have a new face on the opposite side of the ball. They traded Kenny Pickett, former first-round pick, to the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason, and brought in the likes of Justin Fields from the Chicago Bears, which I really like that move for Justin Fields. And I like how the Bears handled that situation, putting him in a spot that he wanted to go to, even if it meant they were going to get a lot less in return for going, if they just send him to any team that they chose. So they did right by Justin Fields, and I think that's very important to do. They also brought in Russell Wilson from the Denver Broncos, who just took a massive cap hit just to get him off the books, because it was just that move, sending Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos, was never good. It sucked from the start. Like, you could tell something was up in that first game against Seattle with the whole timeout situation with Nathaniel Hackett, and it just never got better from there. And Sean Payton was very vocal about how much he did not like Russell Wilson. So sending him to the Pittsburgh Steelers, well, I believe I said this, but I can't remember. Russell Wilson was named the starter. We'll see how the running back room looks this year. Najee Harris has not been the same, really, since his rookie year, and you got Jaylen Warren as the backfield as well, who could eventually take that number 1 spot. At wide receiver, they're very thin. It's basically George Pickens and then a who's who of everybody else. Deontay Johnson got traded to the Carolina Panthers this offseason, so he'll be gone. So there's going to need to see another receiver step up there. I believe Van Jefferson is the current number 2 wide receiver on the roster. You got Pat Freiermuth on the tight end position. The offensive line, I would imagine, to be somewhat solid this year. They did also bring in the likes of Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator, bringing him in for Atlanta, so that kind of scares me a little bit, I'm not going to lie. Defensively, they're solid, though. The Steelers will always be good defensively. Minkah Fitzpatrick's the main star on the defensive side of the ball, and they bring back a lot of veteran pieces and added in some key pieces as well this offseason. Bringing the likes of Dante Johnson, he brought up Patrick Queen as well, and he also got Joey Porter coming off a very strong freshman season in the NFL. So I think the Steelers are just going to be a very solid team, as they always are. I mean, it'd be really stupid for me at this point to say the Steelers would finish less than 500. Again, it would be absolutely insane for me to go out on a limb and say the Steelers, who have never finished below 500 with Mike Tomlin, would start this year and finish below 500. So we're going to have them finish around 500, but on the positive side, unlike the Browns, and finish 9-8. So if you're a math whiz, that would mean the standings in the AFC North read the Baltimore Ravens in first at 11-6, Bengals at 10-7, Steelers at 9-8, and the Cleveland Browns at the bottom at 8-9.
Hey, editing Logan here. Somehow I forgot to mention TJ Watt, who is clearly the best player on the Steelers' defense, only had 19 sacks this past season. I also noticed I forgot to mention Alex Highsmith, another key player on defense. I apologize and I hope it won't happen again.
And if you know your cardinal directions, or you got your cardinal directions down to a science, you'll know that we go north and then we go down to south. And we're going to start off here with the most south team, I think. I don't know exactly. I could be completely wrong with this, but I believe they're the most south team in this division. That's the Houston Texans. They made a big move this offseason by bringing in the likes of Stephon Diggs from Buffalo. I appreciate Stephon Diggs for his time in Buffalo, but towards the end of that, it was just time to break up. It was just time to break up, especially towards the back half of the season when you look at the likes of Khalil Shakir outperforming Diggs or being on par with Diggs with having about like 50 less targets than him. So it's just like, I'm not surprised. Like, I defended it. I defended it a lot, and you have like the rose-tinted glasses when someone like that's on your team because you see how awesome he is, and he's done so well for the Buffalo Bills. In regards to a talent position, he's probably the most talented receiver in Buffalo Bills history. I'm not saying he's the best receiver because obviously Andre Reed has a stake in that acclaim, but Stephon Diggs was awesome in his time in Buffalo. But again, it was time to leave, and now he goes down to the Houston Texans. He front-loaded his contract this year to make it a one-year deal. So my gut instinct is that he's just going to sign for the Dallas Cowboys next year. I mean, he's always talked about playing with Trayvon Diggs, so I would imagine he's just going to sign in Dallas this next year, especially since the Texans, like this year, they just re-signed Nico Collins to a massive contract. They drafted Tank Dell last year, so he's going to be battling for targets there in Houston from starting quarterback C.J. Stroud, who had one of the best rookie seasons in recent memory, and the Houston Texans just came out of complete nowhere this past season. I remember looking at a mock draft last year, right after last year's draft, and they had the top two picks in the draft both belong to the Arizona Cardinals. Because remember, the Texans traded up from either 11 or 12 to move up to number 2 to draft Will Anderson, or number 3, sorry, to move up to draft Will Anderson. The Texans were not supposed to be a team like a good team this past year. Not only were they a good team, they won the division, and they also went out and beat the Cleveland Browns in their first-round playoff game. Like, the Houston Texans are a very good team. They also brought in the likes of Joe Mixon this offseason. Laramie Tunsil's still there at left tackle. Danielle Hunter came in to replace Jonathan Grenard. Basically just flipped spots. Jonathan Grenard obviously went up to the Minnesota Vikings this offseason. Derek Stingley's a very good corner. And you look at DeMeco Ryans as the head coach, kept offensive coordinator as well. Like, the Texans are going to be a very solid team, but it feels like the NFC South every year there's like a good team, expectations go through the roof, and then they just come right back down to earth pretty much. I remember seeing stuff last year with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Some people thought they finished 14-3. I thought the Jaguars would be good last year, and then guess what? They ended up missing the playoffs, and Trevor Lawrence injury kind of derailed a lot of success that the Jacksonville Jaguars could have had last year. But that all being said, I do think the Texans still come on top of this division, but finish with a nice, calm, cool 10-7. And I'm intrigued to see He did get made a captain, but I am intrigued to see how this all goes down with Stephon Diggs this offseason. I didn't even mention, I completely forgot to mention as well, their stupid graphic in their weight room. Like, it says swarm, and then their abbreviation, I don't even remember what it all says, but basically what their word is swarm. That can't be a good omen either this year. So again, Texans finished 10-7. In alphabetical order, again, we go down to the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson, can he stay healthy this year? And I think he played 4 games last year. In the 4 games we saw a lot of potential there. I really liked Anthony Richardson coming out of Florida. I thought the potential was through the freaking roof, and bringing in Shane Steichen and pairing him in a backfield with Jonathan Taylor was awesome. Just mouth-watering to think about. And he got hurt and had a season-ending shoulder surgery. And then you bring in Gardner Minshew, who's like the antithesis of Anthony Richardson to a sense. He's like as big as me. Anthony Richardson is a freaking man-mountain, absolute, like, athletic freak, and Gardner Minshew is like 6 foot, 200 pounds. Like, he's just me. And this offseason, I like that they brought in a backup quarterback that more suits their style of offense, that is more of a like-for-like replacement for Anthony Richardson should anything happen to him again. And Joe Flacco, very mobile quarterback, very athletic quarterback. Like, I like to see that they brought in a quarterback like that this offseason. I'm not a massive fan. Like, I brought up Jonathan Taylor before. This offense is kind of weird for Jonathan Taylor because he's more of an I formation, single backfield type thing. So we'll see how that works out with him standing next to Anthony Richardson. I think they only played like a few plays together last year. Like, it wasn't a lot. So I'm intrigued to see how that relationship goes there. Colts offensive line to expect to continue to improve. At wide receiver, they brought in Adonai Mitchell, got him in the second round, which is an absolute steal to pair up with Michael Pittman, who a lot of people are expecting to have a very good year this year. Also got Josh Downs at wide receiver, Alec Pierce. Like, the Colts got some good options on the offensive side of the ball. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, there are some question marks. There's a very young defense. Their corners are very young as well. There's not a lot of experience there. Yes, they still have the likes of DeForest Buckner on the defensive line, but we're going to want to see them stay consistent this year and hope those young players boost up this year, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But I do think the Colts, with the talent they have on the offensive side of the ball, if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy and reach that next level that we all expect him to, then I think the Colts can be around a 500 team, and I have them finishing 8-9 this year. And the next team on this list is, of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars. We brought up Anthony Richardson's health before with the Indianapolis Colts. Same thing could be said for Trevor Lawrence. Now, Trevor Lawrence, I believe, started every single game this past year, but he clearly wasn't healthy. That ankle has bothered him the entire season, and it affected his play a lot. Trevor Lawrence is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. It's just a matter of, can he reach that potential that everybody saw when he was coming out of Clemson? Now, he got paid like he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Got paid, I think he's the highest paid quarterback in league history now, so you're going to want to see a little more progression from him this year. Travis Etienne at running back had a fantastic season last year. And then at wide receiver, you brought in likes of Brian Thomas, drafted him in the first round this year. Also brought in Buffalo's Gabe Davis. We'll talk about him a little bit more once you get to the Buffalo Bills side of things. And he also brought in Mitch Morse to help secure the offensive line as well. Very experienced guy in the middle of the offense. On the defensive side of the ball, you got Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker on the edge rusher positions. You brought in Eric Armstead in a big deal for the San Francisco 49ers this offseason. We're going to need to see, though, Tyson Campbell step up his play this year. But I think all in all, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, much like we talk about the Cleveland Browns just staying healthy, Trevor Lawrence staying healthy, Christian Kirk staying healthy. Like, these are big players to the Jaguars to move forward this season. If they're going to be a team that challenges the Houston Texans this year, they're going to need all these key pieces to stay healthy, especially their new rich-ass quarterback. That being said, I don't think they'll challenge with the Houston Texans this year. I am going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars finish with the exact same record as the Colts and finish 8-9. And then the final team in the division is the Tennessee Titans. Will Levis going into his second season as the starter. They got a new head coach this offseason. Mike Vrabel got fired this offseason, bringing in Brian Callahan, bringing in Bill Callahan as well as one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL, which is a massive pull away from the Cincinnati Bengals. Getting both Callahans was a big deal. You did also bring in Calvin Ridley, got him to a massive contract this year for being an almost 30-year-old wide receiver. It's a little bit interesting. You also got DeAndre Hopkins there. Treylon Burks, expecting to see him get a little bit better this offseason or this upcoming season. Running back, no Derrick Henry. The face of the franchise for the past however many years is now gone. He's up in Baltimore like we mentioned before. So they brought in Tony Pollard from Dallas, Tyjae Spears, the second-year running back from Tulane. We're expecting to see him get a jump this year. On the offensive line, they brought in J.C. Latham, drafted him with the 7th overall pick this year. We'll see how he does pairing next to Peter Skoronski, who was last year's first-round pick. And on the defensive side of the ball, they got a new defensive coordinator in as well. They also brought in some new faces, some big names on the defensive side of the ball. You look at the likes of Jamal Adams bringing him from Seattle. They made a massive trade to get L'Jarius Sneed from the Kansas City Chiefs as well, which helps secure that cornerback position, especially with Caleb Farley, former first-round draft pick, getting released this offseason. You also brought in Chidobe Awuzie and brought in Quandre Diggs as well, so there's going to be some new faces on the defensive side of the ball. You obviously still got Simmons there as well in the defensive line. Like the Tennessee Titans, it kind of all depends on how these new pieces mesh together. Brian Callahan coming as the new head coach. How will Will Levis improve on his last season? We saw a nice little spurts from Levis last year. How can he continue to build on that? How will they do without Derrick Henry? Again, he's been the lifeline of this organization for the past however many years, so not having him here is freaking massive. But I do think the Titans, with this division being as tight as it is, especially at the top, and not necessarily like all these teams are world beaters or anything, but just that there's like the Colts, Texans, and Jaguars are just solid teams. I do think the Titans will struggle a little bit this year. I'm going to have them going 5-12. And maybe that's a little harsh, but I do have them going 5-12. We're just going to need to see how the offensive line does and see how Will Levis does. But 5-12. I'm sorry if that's a little mean. And continuing in our Cardinal direction game, we got North, South, East. We are now moving to the AFC East, and the Buffalo Bills are the first team here, my team. There's a lot of question marks going into the season for the Bills from the outside perspective, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You lost three main pieces on the defensive side of the ball. Tre'Davious White, who's been one of the best cornerbacks in football, hasn't been healthy for the past 2.5 seasons. He tore his Achilles against the Saints on Thanksgiving, tore his ACL, against the New Orleans Saints on Thanksgiving a couple years ago, tore his Achilles last year against the Miami Dolphins. Speaking of the Miami Dolphins, Jordan Poyer went down south this offseason there, and Micah Hyde's also gone as well. Those are three main cogs in the secondary for the Bills. Now, the cornerback position with Trey White will start there. I don't know if former Trey White was one of the best cornerbacks in football. Current Trey White, I don't think gets in over the likes of Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford. I just think those two are a very solid cornerback pairing. I think a very underrated cornerback pairing. Now, safety I'm a little nervous about because Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, apart from these last 2 seasons, were ever present in the secondary break. You could definitely tell they were dipping towards the last part of last season. So we're going to bring in the likes of Taylor Rapp, who's here last year, kind of a rotational piece. And the current starting safety next to him is Damar Hamlin, which I'm kind of concerned about, not going to lie, but when you look at the other safeties they brought in Cole Bishop, they drafted him from Utah. You brought in Mike Edwards from Kansas City. Both those two have battled injuries so far this offseason. And both those guys would be predicted as starters going in before the offseason started, but with those two being hurt and Damar Hamlin being in the system for now 3 or 4 years now, with Bobby Babich coming in as the defensive coordinator, I say coming in. He's now stepping up as the defensive coordinator. He will be calling plays. They announced that a couple weeks ago, so we're intrigued to see how that goes. And speaking of calling plays, we got Joe Brady as the new offensive coordinator. Full-time offensive coordinator, replaced Ken Dorsey at the Denver Broncos game last year. Thank God. And I think what I'm most excited about with Joe Brady is that the offense doesn't need to revolve around one guy. Ken Dorsey was, let's just bomb it down the field, and if nothing's there, we're just going to force it to Stephon Diggs. That's just what he wanted to do. It was basically the run-and-shoot offense from the Houston Oilers back in the 90s. That's what it kind of reminded me of. Joe Brady has a lot more nuance to this offense, and I'm excited to see how they move. Now, there's no main guy at wide receiver. We brought up Stephon Diggs going to Houston, Gabe Davis leaving to the Jacksonville Jaguars as well, which I expected last season. I knew before last season even started, he wasn't going to be in Buffalo for this coming season. But they drafted Keon Coleman in the 2nd round. You also brought in likes of Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You brought in Mac Hollins. You brought in Curtis Samuel. Like, the only receiver that they have on the roster that's a guy that's returning from the season before is Khalil Shakir. And I'm really excited to see what he does because, like we brought up before with Stephon Diggs, he outperformed Stephon Diggs in the last part of last season. And at the tight end position, I need Dawson Knox to stay healthy, but Dalton Kincaid, I would imagine, is going to be the main guy in regards to the main receivers. I don't know if the Bills will have a 1,000-yard receiver this year, if I'm being 100% honest with you, but I do think that they're going to spread the ball a lot with Josh Allen at quarterback. There's going to be a lot of expectations placed on him because there's some people out there, not a lot of smart people, but there's a lot of people out there that are like, the only reason Josh Allen was ever good was because of Stephon Diggs. Now we're going to see him spread the ball out a little bit more, and this is coming off a season where, yeah, he had a little bit of a turnover issue, but that's perfectly fine because he led the league in touchdowns again. He had another 40 touchdown season, his 4th straight 40 touchdown season. He broke the NFL record jointly with Jalen Hurts for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback. Like, Josh Allen is perfectly fine. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in football, and the reason I'm not scared, like, some people want to go like, oh, I don't know about the Bills this year. I don't know. Logan, what do you think about the Bills? There's a lot of question marks here, especially with, like, Matt Milano being hurt this year. So now your linebackers are Terrell Bernard and Dorian Williams, so we'll see how that goes. Is Von Miller going to be back? Your cornerback, safeties, what's going to happen there? Offense, Stephon Diggs isn't there. I don't need to think about any of that and be worried about that because Josh Allen's the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. And you got James Cook in the backfield with Ray Davis, brought him in for Kentucky. Ty Johnson's there. Mitch Morse, we brought it before, is gone, so the offensive line's a little bit different with David Edwards slotting in at guard and McGovern moving over to center. So there's some question marks there, but the Bills, I'm not worried about them. It's kind of like the Chiefs a couple years ago when they lost Tyreek Hill. And everybody's like, oh, look at the Chargers, look at the Broncos, look at all these different teams in the division, like an arms race in the AFC West. Like, it all looked like that, and then guess what? The Chiefs still won the division. The Dolphins had this division wrapped up, and the Bills lost to the Broncos, and guess what? The Bills still won the division. So I'm not concerned about the Bills' future in this division. Spoiler alert, I do think the Bills will still win this division. I'm going to have them going 11-6 because that first half of the season for the Bills, I believe 4 of their first 6 games are either on the road or in prime time. So there's a lot of, tough games to maneuver around this year, especially with that Houston Texans game in there. I think the Bills will be fine. I think the Bills will be a very good team again. As long as Josh Allen's there and Josh Allen's healthy, the Bills will be a challenger for the Super Bowl. And I have them going 11-6. And the next team on this list, we brought them up, the team that choked the division last year, the Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa, like we brought up with Trevor Lawrence, is a very rich man this offseason. They also brought in Odell Beckham this offseason, which was a really interesting move from them with the pair with the likes of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, the fastest receiving core in football. And speaking of fast, their running back room, Devin Achane, we're excited to see what he can do this year. Raheem Mostert's getting older, so I would highly doubt his production's the same that we saw last year. He also brought in Jalen Wright from Tennessee, so he's got a lot of speed on this offensive side of the ball. We're going to need to see the offensive line continue to improve. Defensively, I don't really know what they're going to be this year. They brought in another defensive coordinator. I think every single year Mike McDaniel has been in Miami, he's brought in a new defensive coordinator every single season. And one of the biggest losses for the Miami Dolphins this offseason was Christian Wilkins going up to the Las Vegas Raiders. That is a massive loss. Now, they did bring in some veterans. We brought up Jordan Poyer. They brought in Calais Campbell this offseason as well. And you do have some injury concerns as well on the defensive side of the ball. Jalen Phillips, he hurt his Achilles. He's expected to play week 1, so there's no real concerns there. And Bradley Chubb is coming off a torn ACL, which he got, I believe, the last week of the regular season. They still got Jalen Ramsey in the secondary as well, so they'll be fine there, at least on that side of the ball. So we'll have, or at least on that side of the field, I should say. Though Jalen Ramsey never beat the Bills, so that's fine. I remember last year when the Dolphins beat the Broncos 70-20, they went into Buffalo, and Buffalo came out 48-20 victors. So again, I don't fear the Dolphins. I'm sorry. Maybe that's mean. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that. Maybe that's going to completely bite me in the ass. I don't fear them. I'm sorry. I do think the Dolphins are a good team, though, but I do think the Dolphins will finish a little bit closer to 500 this year, and I have them going 9-8. And then this next team brings me loads of joy to talk about. That is the New England Patriots. Maybe the worst team in football. They're going to have a new head coach this year. Gerard Mayo's coming in to replace the longtime coach, Bill Belichick. There's just a lot of new coaches this offseason. They brought in Alex Van Pelt as the offensive coordinator this year, former Buffalo Bill quarterback. And speaking of quarterbacks who wore number 10, they drafted Drake May, 3rd overall. They are going to start the season with Jacoby Brissett, so I think Gerard Mayo is perfectly content with playing Jacoby Brissett as long as he can. As long as Jacoby Brissett is upright, has a pulse, has all that stuff, I think Jacoby Brissett will be the starter, but I would like to see Drake May at some point out wide. They did bring in the likes of Jalen Polk from Washington, Javon Baker from UCF, which I think are very good gets at wide receiver. Tight end, Hunter Henry's kicking it, but I just don't have any faith with this offensive side of the ball for the Patriots. It's just a lot of question marks there for them. On the defensive side of the ball, I just don't know what they're going to do. I mean, Christian Gonzalez is back. That's massive. Christian Gonzalez looked really, really good before he got hurt last season. So I'm expected to see him boost up, but I just don't have a lot of faith in the Patriots. Again, I don't like their roster. I'm intrigued to see how Gerard Mayo does in his first year as a head coach. He's a Patriot through and through. He knows the Patriot way in and out. Jacoby Brissett, I don't think will do anything too insulting at the quarterback position, but he's not great. He's not great. We brought the rookie receivers. I just don't know about the Patriots. Maybe they're the Houston Texans from last year because nobody thought the Houston Texans were going to be good, and they turned out to be a fairly solid team, and they had a rookie quarterback as well. So we'll have to wait and see, but I have the Patriots finishing, I love saying this, 4-13 this year. And the final team in the division here is obviously the New York Jets, the team that every single person is talking about this offseason because Aaron Rodgers is back. Aaron Rodgers played 4 plays last year, so we're hoping to see at least double the plays that we saw last year, but Aaron Rodgers being back is so big, and that's why everybody's back with the Jets too. Nathaniel Hackett's only there still because Aaron Rodgers is back. The only reason he was brought there in the first place was so they could court Aaron Rodgers to get him to want to go to the New York Jets. So the only reason Nathaniel Hackett is still there is because he didn't have Aaron Rodgers, so you can use the excuse of, oh, this offense isn't what it was supposed to be last year when you rotated the likes of Tim Boyle, Zach Wilson, and whoever else you threw in at quarterback last year. I don't really remember, but Breece Hall being back and fully healthy is massive as he's one of the best running backs in football. Garrett Wilson sticking with that draft class. We'll see him boost up this year. I believe he's now wearing number 5, so he's back to his college number, which is the look good, feel good, play good style, but Garrett Wilson's an absolute beast at wide receiver. And he also brought in the likes of Mike Williams at wide receiver. I also like the fact they brought in Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, absolute behemoth at the running back position to pair along with Breece Hall. You also brought in Tyrone Smith and Morgan Moses this offseason, 2 veteran presence at the offensive tackle position. You also brought in Olu Fashanu from Penn State, drafted him 11th overall this year. So I like that developmental piece in the offensive line because the Jets' offensive line is going to need to be good to keep Aaron Rodgers upright because he's going to be 41 years old playing on a torn Achilles. So you're going to want to protect him at all freaking costs this year. And defensively, I mean, the Jets will always be solid defensively, even without Hassan Reddick, which is not the most ideal situation to be, but that's where I guess we're sitting out with the New York Jets. But they got the Williams brothers, Quincy and Quinnen. Quinnen Williams had a fantastic season last year from the middle of the defensive line. You also got Sauce Gardner at corner. That being said, he did lose some key pieces on the defensive line as well. Bryce Huff being the main guy there. Will McDonald, we'll see how he steps up and how much his role increased on the defensive side of the ball, especially with Hassan Reddick's situation. I don't even know what you want to call that. Is it a situation? Is it clearing up? I have no idea, but I do think the Jets, as long as Aaron Rodgers can stay freaking healthy, they'll be a solid team. Their defense can carry them as far as they want, really. I know, again, the depth on the defensive line is somewhat scary. They did bring in Javon Kinlaw from San Francisco. We'll see how he does. But Quinnen Williams still there. Quincy Williams coming off a great year. Sauce Gardner, offense, Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. I think the Jets are too good not to be good this year. So I am going to have the Jets finish 10-7. And then the final division we got here is the AFC West. Starting off here, we got the Denver Broncos, who are a team that are going to be exciting to see because they got a new quarterback in Bo Nix. To some people, they overdrafted him, but I'm of the belief that if you see a guy that you want, don't risk losing him to someone else. Sometimes it will be seen as an absolute insane thing to do, but Bo Nix will be starting week 1. He beat out the stalwarts known as Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson for that number 1 QB spot, and Sean Payton just waxed lyrically about him the entire offseason, talking about how they tricked the Minnesota Vikings into drafting J.J. McCarthy so they could get Bo Nix. Like, Bo Nix, I think, is perfect for Sean Payton's style of offense, and I'm intrigued to see how this offense looks in general. Javonte Williams at running back, hopefully he can stay healthy this year. They also brought in Adik Estime from Notre Dame, who I'm very intrigued to see about. You signed Quinn Miners to a nice little extension this offseason to help him to keep the offensive line together. On the outside, they still got the likes of Cortland Sutton there. They did lose Jerry Jeudy, like we brought up earlier, to go into the Cleveland Browns. You also got Marvin Mims. They did draft Troy Franklin, who's Bo Nix's main guy at Oregon. Devon Vele, I'm excited to see what he does as well. I picked him up in my keeper league because why not? So we'll see how he does. They did cut Tim Patrick this offseason. Still got Adam Troutman, Greg Dulcich as well at tight end. It's just a nice little youth movement, I guess you could say. I don't know if it'll bear fruit from the jump, but, you know, crazier things have happened, I guess. And on the defensive side of the ball, they were kind of a mess last year. I mean, we talked about the Dolphins 70-20 game. That was absolutely ridiculous. I was at the Chiefs-Bears game that week. When they announced that score, 70-20, that shocked everybody in the stadium. But Pat Surtain's still there. And Riley Moss from Ankeny Centennial, Iowa boy, is officially the starting quarterback next to him. They got Alex Singleton there at linebacker, but they did lose the likes of Justin Simmons this offseason. So we'll have to wait and see how Denver clicks in year 1, because they're a team that I think some people could consider being, like, we know we joked about the New England Patriots being that, like, Houston Texans team this year, but the Denver Broncos, they could kind of be that team that kind of sneaks up on people. I wouldn't be too shocked by that. Bo Nix looked really good in preseason. I know it's only preseason. Like, Nathan Peterman was a preseason god, and he sucks in the NFL. So preseason's nothing to write home about, like, tenfold, but I did like how he looked, and Sean Payton having his guy is key because, I mean, he hated Russell Wilson last year. But I do think it's just too early to tell. I'm not going to say they're going to finish like 3-14 or something like that, but I am going to have them teeter around like 6-11 and 7-10 this year. Then moving on to the next team in this division, it's unfortunately the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, still there. So guess what? The Chiefs are still going to win this division. I don't really need to say anything more than that. You just know what's going to happen. Now, they have had some insane stuff go on this offseason in regards to the Rashee Rice situation. Like, it felt like every week this offseason, the Kansas City Chiefs had something pop up that was negatively affecting them. But guess what? It's the Chiefs, so they're going to be freaking fine. Hollywood Brown, they brought him in from the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see how he does. I believe he's going to be out for a couple weeks, so we'll have to see how that. They did draft Xavier Worthy. The Bills traded back with the Kansas City Chiefs so they could draft Xavier Worthy, and I'm not mad that the Chiefs took someone that the Bills would want. I don't think the Bills were going to draft Xavier Worthy. It was just the fact that they traded with the Chiefs. You traded with the enemy, and you gave them a piece that can hurt you. Now, Lord knows if that actually ends up working out, but still, I don't like the general practice of that. I do like the bet the Bills got some value pick. They did get, like, Dwayne Carter because of that pick, but I think he'll be fun to watch for the Bills, but I just don't. That feeling that I had on draft night watching them trade with the Chiefs just absolutely killed me to my core. I absolutely despised it, but you know, that's the past. We'll move on from it. They did bring back Juju Smith-Schuster. They did cut Kadarius Toney, sadly. Bills legend Kadarius Toney, was sad to see. Travis Kelce still kicking, who had a down year last year compared to his standards. He had a down year, so I would like to see him boost back up. Isaiah Pacheco still there at running back. Carson Steele had a fantastic preseason. Everybody was laughing at not laughing. They were loving what Carson Steele was doing at the running back position, just running over people like Peyton Hillis regen kind of. So I'm excited to see how much they use him in the offense. Defensively, they re-signed Chris Jones. They lost to L'Jarius Sneed, They traded him away to the Tennessee Titans, but the Chiefs will be fine. George Karlaftis is still there. I'm excited to see what Enudike Uzama on the defensive line does. It was the first round pick 2 years ago. Still got Trent McDuffie there. Like, the Chiefs will be perfectly fine on the defensive side of the ball. They have one of the best defenses in football. They have one of the best young defenses in football. I'm excited to see, or not excited. I hate that they have that. I absolutely despise that they have that. But the Chiefs are the Chiefs, and they will continue to chief, so the Chiefs will win this division and finish 12-5 this year. And the next team in this division is the Las Vegas Raiders. Quarterback position is very odd, not going to lie. Like, there were some reports that suggested Aiden O'Connell being a first-round draft pick in this past year's draft, and that he lost his starting job to Gardner Minshew this offseason. So I don't know, like, Gardner Minshew's like the new age Ryan Fitzpatrick, kind of. Like, everybody loves him. Like, I don't think there's anybody that dislikes Gardner Minshew in the slightest. but you don't want him to be your starting quarterback going into a season. Like, as a Bills fan, I love Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know Buccaneers fans love Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know Jets fans like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Every team Ryan Fitzpatrick's been on, they love him. I know Jaguars fans love Gardner Minshew. Colts fans, Eagles fans, they love Gardner Minshew. But you don't want him to be your starter, and that's what we're going to the season with the Las Vegas Raiders. They did also lose Josh Jacobs this offseason and went to the Green Bay Packers, but they did bring in Alexander Madison, who had a rough year for the Minnesota Vikings last year. Zamir White's going to be RB1 going to the season. They still also have, like Devontae Adams. They got Jacoby Myers there as well. They drafted Brock Bowers in the first round this year, which kind of threw everybody off because they drafted Michael Mayer in last year's draft. Some people see that's counterintuitive to have both of them, but if you want to run a lot of 12 personnel, then I'm not too mad at it. Luke Getsy coming in from the Chicago Bears to serve as the OC. We'll see how that goes, but the Raiders offensively, there's nothing spectacular here. I just like that Antonio Pierce is back as the head coach because it actually gives the Raiders an identity. He understands what it means to be a Raider. Like they have that feel again. And Max Crosby is one of the best defensive linemen in all of football. Obviously, he's going to be one of the front runners for defensive player of the year this year. And I think bringing in somebody like Christian Wilkins, we brought him from Miami Dolphins, will only help him more and it'll help clog up some run lanes in there as well. I think the Raiders are a very interesting team because of the fact, like, again, Gardner Minshew's a fun quarterback. Is he someone that's going to get you to the playoffs? So the Raiders were a solid-ish team last year with Aiden O'Connell. He had moments, but then he was just like the Chiefs game. The Chiefs game in Arrowhead on Christmas. Aiden O'Connell, I don't think, completed a pass in the fourth quarter. I could be completely wrong about that because the defense, they figured out how to beat the Chiefs this year. So we'll see how that carries over in this one. But Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins on the defensive side of the ball, Devontae Adams on the offense. I'd like some of the pieces here. Again, I like Antonio Pierce, but I don't think the Raiders are going to be a great team this year. I do have the Raiders finishing, along with the Denver Broncos, around that 6-11, 7-10 season. I'm going to have it going 6-11, though. And then the final team in the AFC side of things, we got the Los Angeles Chargers. Jim Harbaugh escaping sanctions like Pete Carroll before him to go to the NFL, go back to his former team where he serves as starting quarterback. Justin Herbert, can he stay healthy? That's the main thing here. I think what I've heard with Justin Herbert this offseason is that less is more. With Herbert, they're going to ask him to do a whole lot less because so much was placed on his shoulders for the Chargers in the past however many seasons. Like you saw what happened last year when he got hurt. That game when they played the Raiders absolutely obliterated them. So like Justin Herbert was doing a lot with a very little on the opposite side of the ball. Brandon Staley's gone, which is awesome. So bringing in Jim Harbaugh is big. Greg Roman coming in from Baltimore. We know they're going to want to run the ball. They brought in Baltimore Ravens running backs and Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Drafted Joe Alt with their first pick in the draft to the dismay of some people out there, but that's a very Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman-esque pick. You also drafted Ladd McConkey in the second round, who might be the Chargers' number one option out wide because Lord knows we ain't trusting Quentin Johnston going into year two, but maybe he has a nice little bounce back year for the Chargers. Time will tell. But yeah, the Chargers are going to want to run the football. That's going to be their main thing. They have a new 300-pound D lineman / fullback going into the season, like Pat Ricard regen. Again, we brought up the Ravens stuff. They're just getting a Pat Ricard regen to serve as their fullback this year. They're going to want to run the ball. They're going to have a lot less on the plate for Justin Herbert, which could be an immense thing for him to get him, to keep him healthy. That's the main thing with Justin Herbert. Just keep him freaking healthy. And the defensive side of the ball, they've got some nice pieces there. I mean, you obviously got Joey Bosa. You got Khalil Mack, who had an insane season last year for the Chargers. Derwin James, one of the best safeties in football when he stays healthy, which is the key thing there. We'll have to wait and see on that. The Chargers are just a massive what-if team. They always have the talent to be one of the best teams in football, at least one of the better teams. I shouldn't say best, but one of the better teams in football. They always seem to come up just short. And last year, in the past, like the end of the Brandon Staley era, it sucked to see. And they were shipping points left, right, and center. So we'll have to wait and see on the Chargers, but I do think they're going to be better. Running the ball will be big. Establishing a tone from the offensive line position, actually punching teams in the mouth at the start of the games is what the Chargers are going to want to do. The receiving core kind of startles me a little bit just because I don't fully trust Quentin Johnston. Joshua Palmer's there, but Ladd McConkey, he's going to be in the slot. He's like their main slot guy. We'll see if they use him on the outside at all. He's a route running technician, basically has a PhD in route running. But I do think the Chargers will be better. I do think they'll be better. If Justin Herbert's healthy, then they're just better by default. I do have the Chargers finishing around 500, though, and have them going 8-9 this regular season. And with that being said, that is the final AFC predictions. We're just going to stick with AFC, NFC preview. This video is already long enough as it is, at least how I'm recording. Maybe you edit down. It's actually way shorter than what I'm thinking it's going to be, but I do hope you enjoyed. I do hope your team does better than what I said it was. If you're hurt by what I said about your team, I truly apologize. We'll have an NFC preview coming out for you shortly because the Green Bay, it's nice because the AFC is playing tonight. It's Ravens, Chiefs, and we got the Packers, Eagles game on Friday, so we'll get the video out on Friday hopefully for you. time will tell on how well these predictions, age and stuff like that. I do hope you enjoyed, though. If you didn't, I sincerely apologize. Try to be better next time. Make sure, again, to check out all the links in the description below. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I will see you guys in the NFC preview here shortly. Peace.